Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Meesha.
Welcome to another episode of North Atlanta Real Estate Podcast with Jeff Ahi and Meesha Rawal.
Hi, everybody.
Today, we're going to delve into the topic of how to transition from a homeowner to a home seller, how to help sell your house.
Yeah, I think it's a great topic. And so maybe sort of the recipe for success from a high view, 5 things in particular. First, maybe we can talk about fixing the house.
Yeah.
And then we'll transition into improvements you might be able to make it more profitable, the sale. And then staging the home, how important that is. Then we'll talk about pricing. And then finally, we'll get into touching it based on the marketing you need to do. So
Yeah.
does that sound good? Let's
Absolutely.
go a little deeper.
And I think it's such a step-by-step approach. You cannot put the cart before the horse. You have to go about, first fixing the house, then improving it, then staging it, and just kind of go with it. And I feel the most important thing right now is to let, as an agent, I have to go to a homeowner and ask them to change their mindset from a homeowner to a potential house seller.
Yeah.
You have to start looking at your home, not as a home anymore, but as a property, which has to be polished, shown, and then presented in the market.
Yeah, sometimes, we live in our house and we kind of overlook the flaws. It's easy to kind of look past the flaws after a while, right?
Absolutely, which is why it's so important to fix the house and make the repairs, the deferred maintenance, the electrical outlet that's not working, the deck that needs repairs, all those items that typically get overlooked by someone who's living in the house.
So these are things that are more mechanical, maybe and broken, or like a roof leak and a plumbing leak and things like that is what we're talking about, correct?
So important,
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And once those minor fixes and the major repairs have been done is when we start talking about improvements to the home, and that's when upgrades come into the picture, and that's when we talk to sellers about maybe possibly upgrading their house, their kitchen especially, because a kitchen, as we all know, is the heart of the house, and that is going to bring in the maximum money into the property, which all the real estate gurus have told us, that and the master bathroom. And I feel it's important to sometimes caution home sellers into not overspending on their kitchens. Don't you think?
I agree. I think it's much more important to do a facelift. Like I tell my folks, what you really want to do is get about 80% of the appearance for about 20% of the money. You don't want to go and do a $40,000 or $50,000 kitchen, but sometimes it might even make sense to spend $10,000 if you really are lacking in that area. It's amazing what sometimes just painting the cabinets, new countertop, backsplash can do to a home.
Absolutely. All reflective surfaces like floors, walls, cabinets, lighting, it's so important to make sure that there are no blemishes, they look perfect. So when a buyer comes in, they cannot find too many flaws in the reflective surfaces.
Absolutely. I mean, and if you just think about it quickly, it's almost everything you see when you go in a home is ceilings, floors, and walls. That is most of what you see. And if a home happens to be vacant at the time, if you think about that, then all you see are the flaws.
Absolutely.
It must be in great shape. If you have to really pay attention because you're now looking through somebody else's eyes. It's now a buyer.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting that you said vacant, because these days vacant houses attract some buyers, but
Yep.
Staged houses are the ones where everyone is moving to. Instagram, TikTok, social media, everything is all about staged houses, and especially model houses. When we walk in, it's hard to see a model house which is not staged.
Oh, absolutely. The builders, I think, all do that, and there's a reason for that. They are much more attractive, and they, in our world, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, when you're the photography, the home has to be attractive to get people to want to go inside and take a look, and the staging makes a big difference.
Yes.
In that area.
So if you have a model house in your area, it may not be a bad idea to go tour it to kind of see what it is that the builders have done and how you can translate, if not all of it, some of it into your house, whether it is putting those cutesy little things on the bookshelves, fluffing up the pillows, throwing a rug, or just color coordinating all throughout the house. Just to kind of make it look similar to how the model houses are staged.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And then it's sometimes, stagers could come in and add value, but most of the times I feel as a homeowner, you could do most of the work yourself. Just get inspiration from Pinterest and Instagram.
Well, I think it depends on the homeowner too, and how involved they want to be, and also how much effort are they going to put into the sale. Sometimes it's funny if you think about, people might be more familiar with selling a car because maybe we've done that a little more frequently than a house. You wouldn't take your car and try to sell it and you have McDonald's wrappers on the floor and the tires are bald and things like that. But we've both been out there and you see homes sometimes where people just throw it on the market, and you just can't do that. You've got to make it look as good as possible without going crazy. And so it takes a little bit of effort and a good eye, and sometimes a professional stager might be a good alternative.
Absolutely, so that you don't have to go buy those cutesy things. It may not be a bad idea to have a stager come in and bring their own stuff and stage the house for you.
Absolutely.
Now, pricing the house is, I feel, critical to selling a house. And it's important for sellers to have a realistic expectation of the market when they do go ahead and price their house.
Yeah, absolutely. I think nothing is really more critical in the sales process. If the home is not priced correctly, it's probably not going to sell. And as our market is shifting into more of a neutral market, the sellers have to be mindful that this is not 2021 where buyers are purchasing anything that hits the market. The buyers right now are much more cautious and less plentiful. Interest rates are still elevated. And if you price it incorrectly, you just miss that big pool of buyers that comes out and sees the home in the first 10 days. And there is a little bit of a wave, and you get a lot of showings in that first 10 days and it tapers off. And it's just a huge mistake to misprice the home. So how are we going to get it priced right? What is that process, Meesha?
Well, I feel like you need to defer to the comps in your neighborhood or in your area, because your comps will indicate where you should be priced. Now, you may have better upgrades than your neighbor next door, but you may be in the off season. So you have to look at your house realistically, look at how much houses in your neighborhood sold for, and also talk to your agent, who may be able to give you some idea of if you price it at this particular price range, it could stay on the market for a little longer, but if you price it on a different price range, the days on the market could get shortened up. So it depends on how motivated you are as a seller, and then decide to price the house.
Yeah, and I think one thing too, when you talk about motivation, I would say this is kind of a bad time for a seller who has the attitude of like, well, if I get a good price, I'll move, and if I don't, I'll just stay. And if that's your attitude, you almost might as well not try, because this market is going to reward people that do things properly. And the pricing, like I say, it is not the multiple offer environment, as you know, that we've had in the recent past.
Yeah.
And so because of that, you can be successful, but you're not going to get that home run sale that we might have had a couple years ago.
And then your house gets added to the pile of unsold inventory that we are seeing piling up these past few months. And you don't want to be one of those unsold houses.
It's not fun to sell a house anyway, right? You get people, walking through your house, and you go to, it's a lot of effort to do that. And I think if you're not really committed, why try?
Agreed. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, which brings us to marketing the property.
Yeah.
After you price the house, it's so important to make sure that all the work that you've done to fix the house, to upgrade your house, to stage it, it is being seen by potential buyers. And marketing the house cannot be overstated. And for that, I feel photography is so critical, to get a good photographer. Even though we all have these fantastic cell phones in our pockets, please don't use them. Please go get a professional photographer to photograph your gorgeous house.
Yeah, I think it can be the single biggest mistake that a lot of people make. How many times people can just jump on Zillow right now or whatever platform, and you can see a lot of bad photography mixed in with the good photography, and it makes a difference.
Yeah.
You just can't overlook this. So get professional photography. You want to show off all the work you've done to get it prepped. And then once we have that photography, what are we going to do with all these beautiful photos?
Put it on the MLS.
Yeah.
And Georgia, we are blessed with 2 MLSs.
We are. Absolutely. We have the first multiple listing system and the Georgia multiple listing system. And they both work, and most agents, but not all agents, are members of both. And so to get complete exposure in our Atlanta market, you've got to be in both systems.
And these MLS systems send these houses to Zillow, Trulia, Homes.com, all the major platforms. So you definitely have to be in the MLSs. The third thing would be to schedule the showings. And this is so critical for sellers to realize that when a buyer requests a showing, please go ahead and approve it. Make sure that you have your pets set up for a boarding. Your kids know how to, where to put their shoes just before. Make sure there are no dishes in the sink. And, even if someone comes in at a moment's notice, you are ready as a seller, because you just don't know that maybe the one buyer that you've been waiting for.
Absolutely. And it's not just that. I think too, you've always noticed if you're trying to see a house and there's just difficult access, and maybe as an agent, you're trying 2 or 3 times and you just can't get in the door, it's frustrating. And you then know, and your buyer's going to feel like it's going to be a frustrating process, even if you're interested in the home.
Absolutely.
You've got to make it accessible. And part of the accessibility too, in that first weekend, because what we're always trying to do is we want to put that home on the market on a Thursday or a Friday, so that first weekend is going to have a lot of activity.
Mm-hmm. And you need to be ready for that.
Yes. And because we're trying to create a multiple offer situation.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily going to get it, but we want to create the opportunity. And so what would you think is another important step for that first weekend? What would you suggest?
About the open house?
Yeah, the open house. Absolutely. So it's important, I guess, for when we're talking about to get full access and exposure for the buyers out there. Let's say their agent's busy out of town, happens all the time, especially in the summer. It's very important that we have an easy access opportunity for these buyers. And so having the open house on that first weekend gives everybody the opportunity to see it, when we have the best opportunity to have multiple offer to get that seller the best price.
Absolutely. And when I used to work with Shannon Rawlings Real Estate in Augusta, one thing I did learn there, which worked for them, it still works for them, and it's worked for us also, is to have a 1-hour open house, not an elongated 2-hour, 3-hour open house. That 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock time is just perfect. This last time when we had an open house, we had 23 families walk in, because there's that sense of urgency that is generated when you have a 1-hour open house. So, I definitely will leave you with that, saying that 1-hour open house is definitely
I think it's great. It's better for the home seller too. You don't have to be away so long. You just get it in, get it done, and creates a sense of excitement during that open house. Yeah.
And I feel like if we work on those 5 critical items, as a home seller, we should be able to sell our house in this market. But then, of course, the market has to absorb your house. It has to be priced well, it has to show well, it has to be staged well. And if all those, we have to create the perfect storm.
Yeah, and I think this is a great recipe for success. So I'm sure that if they follow our advice, they'll be in good shape.
Fantastic, Jeff. Thank you so much for an informative session, and I hope our listeners are better prepared when they decide to become home sellers.
Okay, so if you all are actually thinking about selling your house and you'd like to chat with us, please reach out. We'd love to talk to you and give you some advice. Also, if you guys have any other recommendations for other shows and topics that you'd like to hear, we'd be happy to help entertain that.
Fantastic. And that was Jeff Ahi and Meesha Wall with another episode of North Atlanta Real Estate. See you at the next episode.
Bye-bye.